In this video, I'm going to show you how to raise pre-seed funding with no MVP. And I will share with you the reason you might want to do this and the reason MVPs can become problematic for founders, especially if you're raising funding in the early stage. We're talking about pre-seed. The first thing to understand is, what is an MVP? It stands for minimum viable product. Minimum viable product. In other words, what is the minimum product that we need to demonstrate viability, to either validate or invalidate viability? And it's one of these terms that comes from the lean startup method. And founders hear this all the time: create an MVP and go and raise funding with that MVP. But sometimes, as I said, that is not possible. And sometimes it is not the best way to go, because founders can misinterpret what an MVP actually is and waste time and resources that actually work against you when it comes to raising that early stage pre-seed capital. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang, 7-time funded founder with 2 X's. That's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times, and I share this because I want you to benefit from my failures just as much as my successes. And that's why I use videos like this and I use this channel. It's not to say you're not going to make mistakes, but I want to help you avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made, because this is hard enough as it is. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. If you're from Startups.com, thank you so much. Appreciate your support. Let me know how you're doing, what you'd like to see. If you're not from Startups.com, check us out. You might like it. We have a lot of free resources there. In my day, I've raised over $100 million of funding for my startups, other startups, and startup funds. A lot of it was pre-seed funding. I always went and tried to raise that first $100,000 in pre-seed funding, and then I try and raise another $250,000 to $500,000. That's typically what I'd like to do. But how did I raise money pre-seed without a product, without an MVP? I've done that many times, and I'm going to break that down for you right now. Do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you want more videos like this. Let's jump into the formula that I will share when it comes to raising pre-seed funding with no MVP. Let's talk about the problem with MVPs, and it comes down to the way founders interpret what an MVP is. So many times founders, especially first-time early-stage founders, think to themselves an MVP is a light version of the product. And that is simply not the case. You don't actually even need a version of the product, and sometimes it's prohibitive because you need funds to create that product. Let's say that you're promising a video game. How are you going to make an MVP of a video game or a SaaS platform, a software that needs to do all these things? Let's say that you're going out and you need to promise that there are certain features that can work, but you need the money to actually code those features. How do you raise funding? Because you're in a chicken and egg scenario. Do you need a chicken or do you need an egg first? And a lot of times founders think to themselves, well, it seems like that investors want me to create a chicken without an egg or an egg without a chicken. And that's absolutely correct. And this is how you're going to do it, because you don't have to create the product itself to raise funding. Not always. There are other things that you need to do, which I'm going to show you, but just think to yourself, an MVP is not a smaller, light, miniature version with less features of the product. Get yourself out of that mindset, because that's going to help you raise that pre-seed funding. So this is my ABCD formula. All founders want me to tell them what are the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s on how to do this. Well, we need to add one more letter, A, B, C, D. Now, let me say this about formulas. I see a lot of startup advice out there where there's these complex formulas. I've even developed these tools that you need, and those are more for extensive applications. I'm talking about the quick and easiest way to go and raise funding, and I want to simplify it for you so you don't get wrapped up in all the technical things. This is as straightforward as, also, this does not include the pitch deck. I've got a lot of other resources on this channel on how to do the pitch deck. I'm talking about the steps and the mechanisms to create whatever you need to show those investors to get that first check. I'm talking about that $50,000 to $100,000. Let's start with the A, and that is an actual problem. Too many founders spend time creating a problem that they think that they want to solve, that maybe you want to solve for yourself, but it's not an actual problem that justifies becoming a startup or justifies an investor's mind to give you money to do that startup. I have no problems if you go out and solve a problem and say, this is an itch that I want to scratch. I've got lots of products like that, but I don't go raise investment on those products. I've got products where I've said, I would like to have this in my life, and maybe a few other people want to have this in my life, but it's not going to be something that a lot of people want to have, or something that is such a problem. It's painful enough that people run to you for the solution. There has to be market demand, and that means you have to go find out if people have the same problem as you. How many are they willing to pay for it? Do they care about it enough? Is it painful enough to change their behaviors? And that's the difference between having a vitamin problem, a painkiller problem, and an antibiotic problem. If you're selling vitamins, that's nice to have, and you're going to have to do a lot of work to get those products sold. Those vitamins will require tremendous amounts of sales and marketing because it's just not a painful enough problem. And investors know this, and investors are going to think to themselves, well, not a lot of people want this, so where's my money going to go? How am I going to make money back? It needs to be an actual problem, and you need to confront this, and you need to be very brutally realistic. Now, if it's a painkiller problem, how painful is it? Is it where migraines versus, oh, I just feel a little uncomfortable? If it's a migraine and you can tell the investor that this is an actual problem at a migraine level, well, now you have a better chance. And then you've got the antibiotic problem, which is if the customer does not take it, they will die. In other words, they'll lose a ton of money. It's painful enough that the existential threat is real and you've got the solution. The more you can escalate that into antibiotic level, the more investors are going to listen. But again, it needs to be an actual problem, not a problem that you think you've got a cool solution to, or worse, you've created a solution because willy-nilly you said, this is something that I want to do, and then you back your way into a problem, and then you have a solution looking for a problem, and that never works out. Start with the actual problem, go and validate it by talking to real human beings, and then be realistic on whether or not it is actually a problem that deserves investment. Next, after that, you need to create a founder brand. That is the B. And you might be thinking, isn't branding later on when I've got money and that's what Coca-Cola does? Let me explain to you the reason brands exist. And it is one thing alone. Branding is designed to make you stand apart. Think about where the term branding came from. When you had a whole bunch of cows and all the cows look the same, there was a brand, a logo that you branded into the cow. Brutal process. You're basically tattooing the cow with a burn, but it had the symbol. So if you think about the Yellowstone, the television show, that symbol is the Dutton Ranch. That means those cows that look all the same and nobody can tell them apart, that is the symbol saying these cows belong to the Dutton Ranch, belong to Kevin Costner. I think his character died. I don't know. I don't follow it. But they belong to someone. And then therefore, that Dutton Ranch, that logo becomes the most important thing because it sets those cows apart. In the same way with founders, your personal brand sets you apart from all the other founders. So you've got an actual problem, but you are coming across the market to the investors as I'm a founder that is set apart. How do you build this brand? Well, there are three things. There's promise, personality, and there's positioning when it comes to the brand. What is the promise that you make that if someone does business with you, how are their lives going to change? Personality, how do you deliver that promise? Are you like me, where you're just black and white, you're straightforward, you just give them the goods, and you're very blunt, and you communicate straightforward, no fluff? Or are you a charmer? Are you someone who's flashy? Do you have a personality? That's what's going to make you stand out. I know founders that have like funky colored glasses or have dye in their hairs, and that makes them stand out. They got a flamboyant personality with the clothes. That's all part of branding. And then finally, it's positioning, how you stand apart from the competition. How are you better than the other founders? Have you done some really cool stuff? Have you had previous exits? Or do you have domain expertise in the area of the startup and the problem that you're trying to solve that sets you apart? Are you a thought leader? Are you positioned against all the masses, what they're saying as a thought leader? Are you saying contrarian things that other people are not saying? Those are all part of the package of branding. So think, what's my promise? What's my personality? And how am I positioned against the competition? Start building your brand. Get on LinkedIn. Write blog posts. Write those thought leadership articles that I talk about. Set yourself apart. Get that brand in you so that people recognize you and say, this founder is different in everything that they do. They stand apart, and that is going to give me an opportunity or a reason to want to pay attention to you and listen to your investment idea. After your brand, you need to have real customers. That means you have gone and talked to the market. Hopefully you've done this during validation, but you have pitched them your unique value proposition, and you've said, here is the problem that I'm going to solve. And they say, yep, thank you very much. We're in. If you want to do business with us, let us know when you're ready, because thank you for solving that problem. You have talked to real customers. Investors, if you do not have an MVP, you don't have a product that you can show them that they can imagine customers using, you have to go talk to customers. Get those LOIs, get those pre-orders, get those commitments, get them to agree to pricing. I don't care what it is. Put all their logos on the sheet if you're doing B2B SaaS, or get them on a waiting list and say, I've got 10,000 customers that that I've talked to. Tell the investor you've talked to customers and you have a unique insight. That means you're going to have to know who your customers even are. And that's where you go from idea validation to customer discovery. Tell the investors the unique insight that you've discovered about your customers as you've gone along. You may say a story such as, I thought this was my ideal customer who we're going to sell to, but I realized as we began talking, this is the real customer or the initial customer. Let's say it's the decision maker, and I'm going to talk to this person to get to the decision maker, or I figured out a way to get to the decision maker because of my brand. You see how it's all connecting together. The more you can talk about the fact that you're in front of customers and you are on the front lines and you have that intimacy, that unique insight into the customer experience, the problem they're trying to solve, how they go about it, maybe how they use your competition, the better off you're going to be to raise funding in that early stage pre-seed round. Finally, the last thing you need is a demo for customers. But not just customers. You're going to take that demo and you are going to show the customers and then the investor and explain to the investor the customer's reaction to the demo. Here's how this works. You've got an actual problem and everybody validates it. You got a brand that sets you apart and you're standing in front of the customers and you say, hey, I'm solving this problem. If I bring you a demo, you will get on my waiting list, or you'll let me use your name and logo to tell the investors because I need to raise money to actually make this product. That's the conversation you're going to have. Those are the relationship dynamics you're going to manage, which means you need to do founder-led sales. Remember, this is something that you're doing without having to build an MVP. So don't give me resistance and grief about founder-led sales, or you can go and bootstrap the money and build the MVP yourself and do it the old-fashioned way and show investors that you've actually built something that can be used. And I understand, and that's great for Y Combinator. Y Combinator wants you to build something that people love. But how do you do it without the capital? Well, you have to go demo in front of customers. You're doing those sales. You say, customer, I'm going to solve this problem for you. And then I'm going to bring you a demo, and then you are going to give me a response to my demo, and that's what I'm going to tell investors. The demo doesn't have to be your product. The demo can be a bunch of screenshots, or it can be a proof of concept where you say, this is what I could potentially do. The demo can be so many different things, a presentation, a Figma model. It can be all over the place. This is where you can get creative. And the best part is that you have access to these tools. You don't have to hire a developer. You don't have to spend all this time coding. You don't have to become technical if you're not technical. There are tools out there like a straightforward PowerPoint that you can demo, or something that you've created, a content marketing strategy that demos your product, and you go publish it on a free site, a blog post, somewhere out there. I have my stuff out there in different communities and these channels, and I'm watching customers interact with it, but it's not the product. It's a pre-product. It's a demo of the future, of the promise of the product. Now, before you think you're off the hook, let me just very clearly say, this is the minimum level of entry. You have to be able to not build the product, but build the demo, build something. Why? The tools are so easy. Back in the day, investors used to invest in founders to start building the demo or the product because building was really difficult. Coding was difficult. But now with low code, no code, and all these free tools out there, investors know that it's so much easier. And if you're not willing to put in the work to at least develop a PowerPoint presentation, at least show what the interface looks like, or at least show what the final outputs might look like, then investors are going to say, why don't I invest in the other founder that's willing to do that, or the founder that has actually built something? You can show in your demo that you've got a unique insight because you've done ABC up to that point in time, actual problem, you got your brand, you've talked to customers, and that has helped your demo gain that traction, which doesn't have to be sales, but has to be customers saying, yes, absolutely, and the investor believes in your demo. You're going to have so much easier chance raising that pre-seed funding. Remember, MVP does not have to be complicated. Minimum viable product. Instead, think A, B, C, D, do these steps and you should be good. Watch some of these other videos that I'm going to put on my screen for the channel, especially my early stage startup funding canvas. It's a great tool that you might want to be interested in if you want to go a little deeper, but do this formula, try it out, and it may take you multiple iterations, but go out and start using it, try it. Let me know what you think. Let me know your opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video.